Hey everybody, it's Sir Blaha here, and it's time for the third and final part of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this done. Alright, first question. Hey Sir Blaha, first of all, congratulations on your 41st birthday. Thank you. I have a question regarding programming. I want to do a 10x3 system without the bench press, but with heavy emphasis on the push press. So I was thinking of deadlift day 1, push press day 2, then front squat day 3, and then push press again on day 4. Training 3 days a week but rotating through. My question would be, first of all, is this going to work for the goal of getting strong AF on the clean and push press? And secondly, is this suitable for total development in athletics if I throw in some rows and chins as well? Yeah, I think so. Of course, you kind of said the clean and push press, so I don't know, assuming maybe you're cleaning, doing a clean and then a triple on the push press. Is this going to give you full body development? Yes. From an aesthetics and bodybuilding perspective, your pecs might end up lagging a bit, but particularly once you throw in some rows and chins, you're basically working your entire body with a fair amount of volume, with a fair amount of intensity, and so yeah, it'll work. It'll work. You might be able to get away with this 4 days a week, depending upon how strong you are, what your work capacity is, everything else. And yeah, I would consider what you're doing to be a good athletic base. As someone who's just trying to get really strong, get really athletic, I think what you're doing is going to be pretty good overall. Again, obviously you're going to want some general physical preparedness and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's totally workable. You can get away with it 3 days a week, and like I said, maybe even 4 days a week. Depending on what you're doing. You know, I would assess that based upon what you want to do. If you do it 4 days a week, you might need to scale back to 7 or 8 sets. But again, try it and see. But I think it's reasonable as long as you don't overreach too hard. You keep progression reasonable. I think it'll work for you. All right, next question. Hey, Jason. I hear Strap-On Destiny, Scott Herman Fitness, and other people always talk about overload, especially in the context of cheat reps. What is that supposed to mean, and does it even make sense? They seem to mean something other than progressive overload. Thanks, coach. The only extra overload you're getting on cheat reps is a higher eccentric load. You're getting a higher eccentric load. Now, does it work? Yeah. And what I mean is, let's say, I don't care whether it's a curl or a barbell row. If you cheat and use your hips and everything else to get the weight started, you're probably getting a relatively similar concentric load. In other words, let's say you could only strict pen lay row 225, but you can cheat pen lay row 315. You're probably getting similar amounts of stimulation. And then having to catch it a bit on the way down might give it a little bit of eccentric overloading. Now, from a hypertrophy perspective, this would be just as good as the strict reps. It's just as good, but it's not overloading more. It's still the same amount of overall tension. It's still the same amount of metabolic fatigues as if you had done stricter stuff, other than you're just involving a little bit of hip and other muscle groups. So not really doing much there. My only concern is that I think you get the same results from doing this, but with a slightly higher injury risk, and in some cases, maybe reduced performance on your actual concentric power, which might be a problem for sport-specific applications. But I think this sort of cheating for overloading the eccentrics, I don't think it creates any significant difference in hypertrophy. I don't think there's a difference at all. I just think it carries some potential negatives on the performance end of the concentric, which could carry over to sports, and I think it has a slightly higher injury risk, so I just don't recommend doing it. But it still works. It obviously works. All right, next question. What are your thoughts on the landmine press for older guys whose shoulders are a little beat up and overhead pressing aggravates? Now that's an interesting question, because normally I look at the landmine press and I kind of laugh at it. I think it's a silly exercise, because I don't think it brings to the table what you get out of a regular strict press or a push press with a barbell. I don't think it's quite as good of an exercise. I just don't. Now, that being said, you raise the interesting point, because some older guys who have beat up shoulders, and a lot of guys do, I always tell guys, don't beat your shoulders up. Don't ever let it get to that point. But there's probably thousands of people listening out there who it's too late. They've already beat their shoulders up. They are older. They have some training injuries, or they have injuries from whatever. Maybe they were in the military and they got thrown out of too many airplanes and, run over or whatever. And they're beat up from that. Shoulder injuries happen for a wide variety of reasons. You see it a lot from bench pressing incorrectly, contact sports like football, military guys. These are people who they get beat up over time. So in that context, if you can do this exercise pain-free in a strict standing press or a push press, it aggravates you, but the landmine press doesn't. It doesn't aggravate it at all. It's about 1,000,000 times better than not doing any sort of overhead press. So the answer is yeah, absolutely. If it's the only one you can do without aggravating an old shoulder injury, then by all means do it and train it correctly and train it hard. Get the most out of it. All right, next question. Hi, Jason. I was wondering if you could help me out with a problem I've been having. I've been following a full body 3-day-a-week workout routine that includes the bench press. For about a month now, I've been noticing a lot of cracking and discomfort in my right shoulder. I made sure to watch your how-to bench press video. I'm following your instructions to the T and still having the issue. Should I quit benching altogether, or some people's body's just not built for this exercise? No, I don't think anyone is in a situation where they're not built to bench press, unless there's some major deformity that's happened. A couple things going on. It's very possibly a muscle imbalance, very possibly chronic overreaching, or there's another exercise that is aggravating your shoulder and is bringing it out. For example, if you might be bench pressing correctly, but you could be doing a side lateral raise in a way that has crushed the glenoid, right? There could be some other exercise that's causing the injury or the aggravation, and it's coming out on the bench press because you're lifting more weight, and so then that's where you're feeling it. Right? So, I mean, pretty much if you do any exercise the way bodybuilders are showing you to do it, you're probably going to have beat up shoulders and it's coming out. Do not listen to those guys. Do not ever imitate a pro bodybuilder. They're usually morons when it comes to exercise longevity, to the point of scariness. So again, start looking at your other exercises, see what's going on there. First of all, address that. Number 2, it's time to deload. You have pain in one of your joints or in connective tissue. You need to deload. You need to deload right now. Number 3, you need to address any possible muscle imbalance issues. Maybe start doing some band work for your rear delts and rotator cuffs. You can start doing that during your deload. But that's what I'm going to recommend. You don't need to stop bench pressing. Bench press is a perfectly safe exercise for the shoulders. It shouldn't hurt your shoulders if performed correctly. It's probably not the bench press doing it unless there's a chronic overreaching issue going on. All right, next question. In a shit hit the fan scenario, what physical traits would be most beneficial to survival, disregarding other factors such as tactical, medical, survival training? Thanks. Man, kind of one of my firearm channel topics coming up here. But, that's a valid question. Strength, physical strength. And retaining your strength so that you can retain muscle mass is critical in any long-term survival scenario. And I'm going to say long-term, anything that's going to last beyond 30 days, particularly when you might have to struggle for food, things like that. I think building your physical strength is the most important factor. And again, that comes down to being able to maintain some of what you have, because when people start being put in these high stress scenarios, they lose muscle mass and they lose strength quickly. Inability to move quickly, carry your gear, carry your weaponry, carry food, supplies, whatever you find in a true raw scenario is going to be a problem. And the more strength you start out with, the more you're going to have even when things get bad. The more you're going to have when things get bad. It's one of the reasons I've told people most people's shit hit the fan stockpile should include anabolics of some type. Just putting that out there. I've always said that before. Should be on your, even if you're a lifetime natty, you have a major economic collapse in a situation like that, you better have those on hand. They're going to serve you very, very well for retaining muscle mass. And without getting into all the other stuff, I have a whole series on this on my my other channel. All right, next question. How many bodyweight pull-ups / chin-ups should I be able to do before I should start adding weight? Do you have a strength standard for bodyweight pull-ups and chin-ups at the end of the novice program? Thanks. On the novice program, I have you do 3 sets of 8 before you add weight. 3 sets of 8. If a person is just going off of their rep maxes, though, I would say once you can do 10 chin-ups or pull-ups with strict form from a dead hang, you're strong enough to start adding weight. This is an easy question. All right, next question and last question of the week. Do Body types play a part in muscle and strength gains, as in being a mesomorph, ectomorph, endomorph. No, because there is no such thing. There's actually no such thing. The somotypes, those three somotypes that the bodybuilding world got all into for a few decades, don't actually exist. It's not backed by science. They're not like different people. You know, all they are is size of your frame compared with how much your appetite is, right? That's all that means. An ectomorph is just someone who has a low appetite, who doesn't like to eat, who has a smaller frame. That's it. And even the ones who think they eat a lot, they don't like food. That's why they're an ectomorph. An endomorph is someone who likes food. They like to eat. They have a high appetite. Therefore, they tend to be fatter more so and sedentary. And a mesomorph is just someone who has a large bone structure with a normal appetite, who's probably physically active. Now, a lot of people say, well, what about people who don't meet that exact criteria? What if they have a different combination? Well, then there's not one of these silly somotypes for them, is it? Because these aren't actually real. Those are the examples of the people who you're observing. That if they've created these three somotypes for, there's probably dozens of different variations, and they aren't actually real. It's not a real thing. It's just a category that was made up as a form of pseudoscience. So no, it doesn't matter. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.